Okay, so I've been meaning to make this video, but I haven't really had like the place or time, so now I'm just doing it anyway, where I can right now. This is gonna be more advice for homeless kids, which of course is gonna be what I like to call escapees. So for my fellow escapees, or if you're kicked out, which honestly, if you were kicked out, you probably were in a situation that wasn't all that great anyway, possibly, but a lot of people, due to side trauma from other people or brainwashing with the media and school systems, they're getting kicked out for like wanting to go off into like alphabet stuff. Honestly, I don't think someone should be kicked out for that either, but I will say, don't get kicked out over sex rituals. Anywho, so join the groups, join one of them. I have some screenshots at the beginning of the different groups I made. The runaway one is supposed to be a better like support group or youth rights group than honestly the few other runaway groups that there are. There's one that was made by this one 14-year-old, at least she was 14 at the time or something like that, maybe like 13, but I don't really know what all happened with her situation. I can't remember how to even get to the website, and I'm pretty sure she lost access to the website due to the situation where her and her friend have to escape. Because honestly, I would link that one because it was pretty good, but I'm gonna hopefully make a website eventually. But for right now, we had the Facebook group, which honestly should probably be private, but I'm gonna make sure that no risky people get on. I am gonna do a type of memorial for this one boy who helped a lot of people. He was really screwed up in the head due to all the things that happened to him, but he still did what he could to try to help people. And kind of getting sidetracked because I see the security walking in this direction somewhat. But what was I even saying? Oh yeah, he was 19. At least he was 19 when I met him, and he did a lot for a lot of people. And apparently he's been dead for a while, which is what I worried about. I worried about him either taking his own life or him getting unalived by one of his chomo girlfriends, which that's a video of its own that I think I've mentioned this situation before, at least on the evidence channels. I don't think I've mentioned it since I've been on here, but I don't know, or at least since I've been back on here and only on this one. So another thing, join the resistance and the rebellion. I know people like to act like whenever you want to defend yourself and defend other people, all of a sudden you're the violent sociopath, quote unquote, as if I've even done anything to anybody. But that's the stuff that people like to say, because for one, a lot of people have perpetrator mindsets where they feel like one person should be able to do whatever they want to people and no one can do anything to them. And then people focus on legalities, because of course the Freemason, Chomo, KKK, Luciferian lawyers and judges and higher ups make the laws, and the laws are put in place to keep people in victimizing situations. I don't even think that came out right, but they want to destroy youth, which is why somebody that's in their 20s, or that's a teenager, or even somebody that's not even a teenager. Okay, I screwed that all up, so I had to start over. But they'll get a life sentence for doing something that an older person wouldn't even get charged or looked at for, because being young is criminalized, and that's what the chomo pedo lawyers and judges and law officials want. It kind of reminds me of this whole situation with Sodom and Gomorrah, because it was the law officials that actually decided for the 4 cities to put beds in the streets to assault people. the lawyers and the judges and the Supreme Court type people made those decisions. And that's why they had the beds in the streets where they would like terrorize people. In fact, they had a lot of horrific laws, which America is getting closer and closer to that, like with how foreigners are treated, or how people in general are treated, to be honest. And the funny thing is, as bad as the foreigners are treated, they're still treated better than the youth who were born here. But that's a whole nother video of its own. Anywho, I was reminded that I really needed to make this video after the situation where I was walking around with this youth program staff, and the security / police type thing where I'm at had came up to the dude and was like, and just to let you know, there's some teenagers who ran away, and we have pictures of them, and if you see them or if they come to you guys, let us know. First of all, that's not even really that legal. There's like so many issues with that. The whole point of youth programs are to, well, I mean, for one, the youth wouldn't even run for help to the specific program that this staff member worked for, because it would be very risky, since it revolves around like making movies and videos and stuff. There would be no point unless they wanted to do what the kids on Soft White Underbelly do, and pretty much just throw themselves out there to be at risk, because now their situations are going to blow up. Other than that, it wouldn't even make sense for the security dude to approach them, because it's not like they're a drop-in center or something. But still, that's just messed up for a lot of different reasons, because the youth programs are supposed to be for runaways and kicked out kids and foster kids. In fact, the overall reason that youth programs are really made for is for foster kids, because being in foster care is being homeless, and you're commonly going to end up full-blown on the streets a lot if you're in foster care. But due to all the kicked out kids and runaways, homeless youth programs started opening up their doors to more people, and like having a little bit more services that could like be for people other than foster kids, pretty much. But yeah, so anyway, youth programs aren't there to rat people out to the police, or to even let police come in and search for people. So there's that. But anyway, the security was like, one of the kids was homeless or something like that, and the other one wasn't, or chose to be. It was some bull crap, some stupid bull crap. And it's like, people aren't choosing to be homeless, and in the eyes of the law, being kicked out or running away, it's not seen any different, not in America at least. In the UK, you can actually leave at 16, and just like I showed in that video with the screenshots of the New Zealand kid story, you can see that apparently in New Zealand they have like things set up to where it's a little easier to become an independent minor. And it's really funny because it's like you can like legally be essayed at 14, really at any age, because none of them get charged or go to jail, but the age of consent is 14. And the only reason the 18 laws are put in place is also due to like sexually perverse stuff, but you still can't do anything at any of those ages. But to get to the point, it kind of reminds me of what this one girl said in this interview for like some youth shelter. And she was saying that people say, well, if you're a homeless kid, then just go back to your mommy and daddy. And she was like, that's not always an option. But the thing is, if anybody had that option, nobody would be out here in the first place. That's kind of the funny thing, because it's like, it all goes back to the same stuff. And it's just no accountability nowhere as usual. And that's why things will continue to go down, and Babylon will continue to fall into judgment. Honestly, everywhere, because the family systems are they're really screwed up in the West especially, but I mean everywhere's been pretty messy. Actually, no, hold up. I forgot to say something else about something I was saying some minutes ago. So going back to the whole, whenever you want to defend yourself or help other people, you're all of a sudden a quote-unquote violent sociopath, which of course is always said by people who commonly are in bloodlines that do SRA, sex trafficking, but of course they're going to feel like never even say anything wrong to a perpetrator, because that's what they're taught in their little Luciferian bloodlines, and then they spend the rest of their life running from their family, but still won't come to grips with how evil is. But that's a whole nother story. But aside from the legalities and how people are taught to think that defending yourself is wrong because defending yourself is illegal, it's also like some religious stuff to it, because of like the whole thing with religion being worship of the fallen angels, the Anunnaki, and their demon hybrids, and how religion is the new world order, and how atheists think that they think that they're smart, but they have the same talking points and bullcrap narratives as religious people. And it's all the broad path to hell and following the lies of the cult of society. And so anyway, these flipped around religions and these weird doctrines have also taught people not to get away from bad people and not to defend themselves, which is interesting since Jesus told the disciples to get a sword. Anywho, I don't even remember what I was last talking about. So to go on to the next thing, watch out for security companies. Abbott, Spy Inc., Allied Universal, Garda World, IPS, International Protective Services, Fortified Security, Pacific Security. Sure, there's some other ones. The main ones are Abbott and Allied, though. Also, another thing, never ask the police anything. Don't ask the police directions for anywhere. Don't do any of that. I remember there was this one girl who was talking about how she had ran away from her abuse situation, and for one, she was doing everything all wrong, but I already talked about that in the How Not to Run Away playlist, which I'm pretty sure those videos where I mentioned this girl who, like, or at least I think this was the same person who jumped right into prostitution. And it's like, if you leave a sex trafficking situation, why would you? I mean, I understand why somebody would, because they just feel like that's the way to go. But the thing is, you don't leave one situation to jump right back into it with new people. That's the reason why you don't go to CPS. Not that they're going to do anything anyway. It's very unlikely that they'll remove you. If they do, they'll just eventually put you back, but you're just going to be getting abused by strangers. And like this one dude said, I'd rather be abused by my family than be abused by people I don't even know. Because for one, with the family thing is that you get used to it and you kind of like know what to expect, usually. But when you go into CPS to get abused and trafficked by strangers, you don't really know who the people are, what they're going to do. It's just a lot of stuff with that. And yeah, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so she was like, I ran away and I'm only like one city over from where I ran away from, and the police haven't even noticed me. I even asked the police for directions somewhere. Never do that. The moment you ask the police for directions somewhere, they probably will ask you about how old you are, where your parents are. They're going to ask you for an ID, which is why if you get far away enough and you get enough states away, depending on how much media coverage you have, you should automatically go to some shelter drop-in center and get one of those homeless ID things that they give out. Do remember that all shelters run off of the HMIS system. So if you use a name and a birth date and a picture one place and you go to another state, it's the same system. So they're going to know that you're the same person, and it's a lot of stuff with that. But get one of those and put the oldest age that people will believe. So for me, I thought that I said I was 21. Apparently I said that I was 20. But if people believe that you're 25, get that put on there. People believe that you're 18, put that on there. Honestly, most like 10 to 12 year olds these days could pass for 18. And you can't really tell how old people are by looking at them, but a lot of people feel like you can, which a lot of that revolves around like weird stuff and sex appeal. So like how a lot of people don't believe that I'm older than like 11 or 12, especially white people. But then some people will say that I'm in my 20s or 30s. But then other people will say that anybody that's claimed that they think that you're in your 20s or 30s is lying. But the thing is, though, when you're in certain environments and certain situations, especially like when you're homeless, people are going to automatically believe that you're older than you are. Or at least most will. So they're going to automatically assume that at least you're in your 20s because that's what people rather believe anyway. So yeah, then there's also that. So there's a psychological aspect. But anyway, you want to get one of those homeless IDs. It's going to have a picture of you. You want a name that you can remember and a birth date that you can remember. I do understand that some people are going to be scared to do this. And I'm not going to lie, I was too. I really didn't want to. But if you get far away enough and like you're around people that honestly don't really care enough to really even like try to figure anything out, or you're around people that care enough to be like, well, I'd rather for you to be staying at the shelter, I'd rather for you to like be able to get an ID than for you to not have any of this and then be like at risk or for things to be harder for you. I don't even remember what I was about to say. But yeah, so there's that. That's what you're gonna use whenever you're like asked for an ID. But do know it's not a state ID, so I mean you can't like go to the bar with it or anything, which that's not what you should be trying to do anyway, because that's just going to make your situation way worse, and you honestly probably just get kidnapped and molested anyway. So what was the next thing? Oh yeah, I never finished that last sentence. So when you ask police for directions, no, I already said that, hold up, no, okay, I remember now. If you ask them for directions to a shelter or for homeless services, they're definitely going to ask you a lot of questions about how old you are and ask for ID. And it may be worse depending on your ethnicity. And I know that New York Port Authority is really bad for this. In fact, they're the ones that sent Nova from Soft White Underbelly back to sex trafficking. And they tried to the second time, but she was able to get away. And she hurried up and went back to the West Coast. Because she recently tried to go back, and this is where she went to that last time her mom got her arrested. And I really want to make a video going back over the Nova and Billy situation. And remember, I'm talking about the Nova from Soft White Underbelly, not the one with the chomo, the bug-eyed chomo with the Baphomet tattooed on the back of his head and the 10 on the top of his car. Not that one. Because, like, it's like due to the hatred of men, or quote-unquote men anyway, especially melanated ones or quote-unquote black ones, like Billy got so much hate, and he got way more hate than honestly anybody I've ever seen on Soft White Underbelly, and there's reason for that. And it also means that he probably has like a serious call in his life if people are trying to like do away with him that much. But of course there's also the racial side, but I can't really go into that where I'm at right now anyway, because I'd have to mention like a lot of kind of risky stuff to be where I'm at. But yeah, New York Port Authority won't even tell you how to get to the Covenant House. And keep in mind that with the views that people have on the East Coast, especially more so in the South, it's like, well, for one, there's already no youth services or really homeless services in general on the East Coast, or especially in the South. But people have an even worse mindset to like revolving around like homeless youth. But I also noticed that even in the places where they do have youth resources, it commonly revolves around foster care, because like I said, that's what it kind of was all originally based around, or sexual stuff. But anywho, they're not going to transport you anywhere, they're not going to help you get anywhere. They're just going to see you as a new homeless kid that's going to be a problem for them for the next 50 years. They see you as somebody that's going to get raped and then start losing your mind because of that, and then get on drugs, and they just see you as someone else who's going to be something else for them to deal with, because of course they lack emotions. And the police and these security companies, they like to hire people that think they're pretty young girls and pretty young boys, and they feel like, oh, I'm young and I have a job, so I'm better than everybody else, and things like that, or just people who already have these empathy lacking mindsets. But that's a video of its own. Well, I'm trying to find the page with my notes. I'm gonna go ahead and say I have a playlist about why you can't be desperate, or why you shouldn't be. You can be whatever you want to be, but you shouldn't be. I have a playlist about let me help you lunatics. And it's a concept that I actually made in 2022, but that's another story. I have the how to run away playlist, how not to run away playlist, which also has some documentaries of different street kid lifestyle stories with real people, where most of them are dead and some didn't even make it past like 12, unfortunately. In fact, one of the reasons that one didn't make it past like 12, 13 is because he got put in a cash for kids system placement and of course ended up dying in there. He took his own life, but I mean, if you don't kill yourself, they'll kill you. So there's that. Or they'll drive you crazy, which is just about the same thing. It was something else. Anointed people in trauma, playlist for anointed or prophetic kids, or people in general, communist agenda against kids or everyone, projective heroism, why abused kids can't defend themselves. One of the most important playlists I'll say is the spiritual side to mental illness, which also can go along with anointed people in trauma. That'll help you really understand why things are actually happening that are happening. And important message to abused kids. And then another playlist is, I think I recently made it, and I think it's titled number one most important thing or something like that. And some of the most important videos in there are my most recent video about the truth of the cash for kids system. Or at least I think I put the video in there. Not the one I made in 2021. I actually don't even really like that one anymore, to be honest. My most recent one, how the Child's Play franchise exposes the cash for kids system, but honestly, not even that one. My important message to abused kids video, which I think I made in like 2022 or something like that. And I talk about this book, which was called The Dream of the Planet. It was about ancient Toltec wisdom. It was a concept that I already had a name for. I called it the code of society, and of course trauma-based mind control, and a couple other things. And there was one other thing. Oh yeah, the video that I made that's actually somewhat recent, titled What to Do If You're an Abused Kid. And it's not what people tell you to do. It's everything that you should do that people won't tell you should do, because they want you to constantly be in these cycles to where you eventually lose your mind and feel like everybody hates you, because everybody around you does hate you. Just like that lady said in her response to my relative smear campaigning me all over the internet. Nobody loves you, but nobody loved me either. And I know people say that's depressing, but if the people around you don't like you, you don't want to be sitting around lying to yourself saying that they do, because that'll just have you sitting in a bad situation probably way longer than you really have to. And I really can't find these notes, and I don't know why. Get what little resources there are before they no longer exist. So as Babylon falls and the dollar falls, I'd advise you to probably start doing research on like what resources there are in different states, especially youth resources, and learn about that while they're still around. So there's that. Homeless kicked out kids around 14 to 25. Oh, I remember what this is about. So Oregon has youth centers for homeless kids around about 14 or like 15 to 25, 15 to 24, 17 to 19. Can't tell what this is. FUP vouchers are for foster kids that are 21 to, I think, 21 to 24, something like that. Or you have to like sign up by 21. I can't really remember. The waiting list is crazy though, so I mean, but still like trying to get on there. Another thing, youth resource centers are supposed to like help you get emancipated. It's very unlikely that they will, and honestly, the process is made hard on purpose to try to keep you in the systems. So it's really better to try to lay low till 18, but I understand that that's like horrific, and depending on how young you are when you leave, that could be very bad. Which is why, like, depending on your situation, I wouldn't even advise leaving before like 15, 16, or well, somewhere from 14 to 16. Because like the longer wait you have till 18 or 18 plus, the worse it'll be. More hiding from cops, and then the fact that you're not able to do anything. But keep in mind the whole we'll hire you once you're 18 or things like that. Honestly, that's not necessarily true. Like a lot of places rather hire people who are about 25 to 30s. They're really just 30s. There's a lot of ageism, and it's like then once you're older than like 40 something, they don't want to hire you because then you're quote unquote old. Last night I had this girl tell me that 18 is the hardest age for street kids because you're legally an adult but you still can't do jack. And like a lot of people get caught up in this, once I turn 18 I'm going to be able to like jump straight into a job and I'm going to be able to do this and do that. And I'm not trying to like be a Debbie Downer, as people like to say I am. I'm just like saying that honestly that's not that true, and things are going to take time. And that's if you well, let me not get that depressing, but let me just say some people don't even make it that far. They lose their mind before then, or they end up in prison for no reason, or they just like die or whatever. But make sure you stay on the protection prayers and the armor of Christ prayers and actually believe it, because it's useful. And people are gonna, I know people like, for one, when they go through things they automatically feel like God hates them and all that. But the unfortunate thing is that we live in a fallen world where people have free will and they treat people like crap. So don't feel like that. But it's also like this psychological aspect to it, where especially for people who didn't have a dad or they didn't have a loving dad, it's almost impossible for someone who didn't have a dad to believe in God. And then there's that part. But it's really helpful, and also watching who you're around and like who you hang out with. For me personally, I would want to be around people my age, but it's like, for one, when you're a homeless kid, people don't really want you around your kids. Also, it's like hard to really even know where other people your age are. But then it's also like my social skills are absolutely like, they've been in the gutter. Because one, it's very obvious that my whole family could meet the autism label criteria, especially for the current one. And then of course, we're all like personality disorder due to generational trauma and generational marine spirits. Then the trauma, I feel like I make things about me a lot in conversations on accident, and I think it's because like I spend too much time in my head. Because I even remember I had someone tell me that I type as if I'm talking to myself in my head and not as if I'm talking to another person. I don't really know what that means, but there's that with like the social issues due to trauma. But then it's also like oh yeah, it's like a lot of people are mean, especially like younger people. They're like either mean or they're into a lot of stuff that I avoid, and that's whether they're like street kids or not. But before the overshare, the point I was getting at was that I haven't had anything happen to me since I've been out here, and a lot of it has something to do with who you hang around. I noticed even before, way before being out here, that the things that happen to people are always happening to them by people in their close circle. And I'm not saying that like somebody can't run up on you and like punch you in the face or something, or run up on you and like bite your toenail off, but I don't even remember what I was about to say. So the next thing on the list, there's case management, or you can get a case manager on the West Coast. And this says, oh no, I already read that one. Oregon, BIPOC, I hate those types of terms, but I'm not going to go into that. Housing, if you've been, this is for youth who have been in jail or juvie, have physical or mental disorder, which actually has to be on paper and verified, because of course when you go through the Cash for Kids system, you're everybody's paycheck, but then once you're 18, you don't get any money, and now all of a sudden you don't have a valid or verified mental illness. That's how they do people. I've met so many people that have to jump through hoops to get autism and other labels verified, and to the point where they just don't even care. They stop caring, or they just don't even try in the first place, because it could take years, and then because you're quote unquote disabled, they don't really want to give you any money, but yet they let people get money for substance use disorders so they can go use the money to get more drugs, because that's how the systems make their money, and that's how they depopulate, by throwing drugs everywhere to get rid of who they can. But that's another story. Then Oregon has this is more so for people who I guess aren't federal minors, but I think you could get into it regardless. So if you have a learning disability, which means your IQ has to be lower than 70 to 75, and to be truthfully honest, people that are labeled off as retarded commonly have high IQs, so I don't really know who else really going to fit this, but you can get a housing voucher, and they can check to see if you ever had an IEP from your school records, and if you have a valid disability, and then you could get that youth drop-in centers for 14 to 25, but they want an ID for whatever reason here. And I think a big thing is they don't want people that are older than that age to come in, which I really don't like this age stuff, because for one, let's say somebody has been homeless on the East Coast since they were 12, 13, 14, and they just been running around thugging through it. In fact, all of my older siblings were kicked out at 13 and 14, which I mentioned at least on the evidence channels. But there's no services there, and of course you still can't stay at a shelter under 18, but there are absolutely no youth services there in the South. So a lot of people who are in situations like that, their only options are to join a gang, or live with some chomo, or both. And so anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so somebody's been running around homeless in the South from 14 to, I don't know, 26 or 25. Well, not even 25, because that's even kind of too old, but 24. And then they do research and find out that there's youth programs in the West Coast, but they go to the West Coast, but once they finally get signed up for stuff, they age out, and then they turn 25, and then it's well, what in the world? Or you're waiting on a waiting list for something, but by the time you get to the top, if you get to the top, you've already aged out. So all that is really messed up, and that's some of the issues, aside from the fact that you really can't access any of this stuff till 18. So then there's also that. What else was it? 14 to 25. Oh yeah, so another thing about them wanting an ID. I'm assuming that you could use the homeless IDs, but of course you'd have to lie and say you're 18, which you'd have to do anyway to even get one of the homeless IDs from the places that do give those out, because you have to be 18 plus to go in there, or to go on the campuses. And so, what point was I getting at? But yeah, I'd assume that you can use those, but other than that, it doesn't really make sense. And it's I don't know if you can get an ID under 18, but I know that it's really risky when you're in lay low situations, to where most people aren't willing to try, So I don't even know if you could get a state ID, and I don't know if they like want you to get that one. But it's also kind of interesting because people usually don't even expect homeless people, regardless of age, to have vital records or an ID. But especially when you're underage or when you're like youth. So I mean, it's kind of interesting to me. But yeah. So another thing, there's shelters for people that are 12 to 20 in Washington County, apparently. And Oregon has homeless public storage units. And it's actually really funny because I've heard people mention homeless storage, but I didn't know it actually existed. I always thought that it was a myth. And so that's the good thing about traveling. And yeah, so if you want any tips, leave a comment if anybody even watches this. I've been to every state on the East Coast except for Maine. I've been to every state on the West Coast, and I've been to every state on the bottom except for Florida. So, yeah. And I haven't been in the middle, which is honestly really risky. Kind of for the same reasons that the West Coast is risky. Cults, sundown towns, cults, incest cults. Oh yeah, watch out for the Hare Krishnas, or really any religious group, I'd say. Especially on the West Coast, because they're all owned by witches.